Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well and enjoying the fall colors. I feel like they're really splendid this year. So I'd like to officially start the meeting now, and we will do that first with the approval of the agenda. I will ask others if they noticed anything that maybe needs adjustment on the agenda. I did notice one date error, I believe, under 4.1C, the presentation dated October 19th, 2021. Oh, no, that's probably correct. That's today. Okay, sorry about that. For some reason I thought it was the 17th today. Okay, so does anyone have anything that they noticed in the agenda that needs correction or clarification?
Any late items?
Any late items? Okay, good. So can I put forth the recommendation that the Parks, Trails and Greenways Advisory Committee approve the agenda and late items agenda, if applicable, for the October 19th, 2021 meeting, and have, okay, Sue Ellen and a seconder. Nicola, thank you. Okay, so the agenda is approved. Now we'll move on to
I consent.
Yes. Oh, yes. Sorry about that. So yes, number 2, adoption of the minutes. Hopefully folks had a chance to look at the minutes. They're linked there in the agenda. It was July 13th when we had our last meeting. Did anyone notice anything that needs correction or clarification for the minutes? And I'm just looking because, oh yes, so for 4.1D, under the recommendation, it says, it refers to an October 6th meeting. And I just wonder if that's a council meeting, if we could add the word council in there so that we know what meeting is being referred to. And under staff provided an update on current activities. I'm just going to add again that if we could, when we mention knotweed, if we could add introduced knotweed or non-native knotweed, that would be preferable, because there are native knotweeds that we're not referring to about removal. Okay, great. Thank you. Anyone else? All good? Okay, then I would like to read the recommendation.
Adopt the minutes as amended.
I'm sorry?
Adopt the minutes as amended.
Yes. And can have someone move that? Phil, thank you. And someone second it? Ben, thank you. All in favor? Okay, unanimous consent. Thank you. And we have someone with us tonight from the public, and we're on number 3, where public comments will be heard. So if you could please introduce yourself and tell us why you're here. You might be on mute.
Thank you. My name is Sasha Rankin. I'm the Ambassador of Safety and Environmental Steward to the Cape. I've been working with the Cape for 4 years. The reason I'm here tonight is because Donna Bote had asked me to speak in regards to some of the things that I've been witnessing out at the Cape, specifically summer months. It's become a dumping ground at both parking lots at Roger Curtis Lane and Lighthouse Lane parking lot. We've been having people just dumping tons of garbage to the point that Bowen Island Waste has had to visit these spots 2 times a week to go and deal with the dumping of public garbage and stuff like that. What I would recommend is having signage put in there saying no overnight parking. I think the fact that we have no signage there, I've been dealing with people with caravans basically telling me off, saying, you know, because there's no signage saying that there's no overnight camping, they can do what they want. And also they park there, then they walk on to adjacent lots and they're camping and they're, you know, leaving litter. There also needs to be bathrooms at the conservatory as well as at Lighthouse Lane, because sometimes they don't make it all the way to Roger Curtis Beach. So again, they're going onto property and they're, you know, defecating on property, on private property adjacent to it. But one of the main things I find is fire. There needs to be signage saying no fire, because just like the conservatory right across from it, I've had to take 3 fire pits per month. I have to dismantle and putting it, and this is happening all over the Cape and also in public part as well, because there's no signage saying no fire. I'm really concerned. I think we could have a potential forest fire on our hands because there is nothing to stop the public. We need bylaw officers. In the summer, it's a gong show up there. If you've ever been there on the weekend, the public in general know when the bylaw officers aren't working, and they're not on the weekend and the peak times, and they're not there during, like, you know, in the summer during the weekdays after 5 o'clock. And it's a big problem because you go down there, there's 40 cars either way and very difficult. And if you have a forest fire at night, good luck getting people out safely. I'm really concerned. So this is why I wanted to talk to you guys, because I think there needs to be more safety things put in order to protect the public in general. I think I covered because I've had fire pits. You have to understand, before the conservatory was bought, I was the one who was out there dismantling the fire pits. I was the one who was moving defecation, stuff like that, with bags and doggy bags and getting rid of it. This is something that's been going on for the last 4 years. But I know one thing also, because of COVID, we've had way more influx of people coming over, and it's becoming a real, our house right now is right across from, like, it's White Sails. You can see people coming up and down here. It's just like a thorough, a very well used road. And because there's only one road going in and out, it's, you know, we're looking at a potential fire hazard. I'm really worried because just like when there was a fire a couple of years ago and it was reported, that was me that reported it when there was that big fire at Lighthouse Lane. And I can tell you, it took the authorities 17 minutes to get out there. But you try that in a summer dry condition, drought-like, with everything drying out. There's just no infrastructure to put the fire out. There's nothing. There's no hydrants. There's nothing out there. So and I'm concerned, especially because I think about those people with one road coming in, and how if we got a forest fire? You know, they have to actually get the water right at Lighthouse, or at Lighthouse Lane, or not Lighthouse Lane, sorry, at White Sails, in order to go out there, right? So I don't know.
Okay. Thank you, Sasha. Could you clarify what the conservatory is?
The conservatory is right beside 1900 Cape Drive. Is right beside the the Sea Rocks Trail or whatever, right across from it. That lot has, because there's basically no signage saying no overnight parking, we're having people coming onto property across from it and putting fire pits. I have to dismantle them all over. Also, an example, right beside the conservatory, 1930 Hazardous Creek Lane. I'm getting people calling my house, literally saying, there's somebody there, there's camping, there's open fire, please deal with this. And I'm only one person, you know, like, I'm having to go down there and try to help the private property people. But you have to understand, at the conservatory, at 1920 Hazardous Creek Lane, at the ones adjacent to it, 1910 and 1900 at the Cape Drive, I was the one managing for years, dismantling those pits on it. And it's a big concern.
Yeah, we hear you. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. We will take your words into account and.
Yes.
and
Well, I
have a
wanted to
discussion.
mention one more thing at 1850 Lighthouse Lane. And that's where beside where the public, there's a parking lot, as we know, and then 1850 Lighthouse Lane is the one beside it. I had a family of 13 people this summer with open flame, you name it. And they started arguing with me and saying, well, there's no signs on here saying no overnight parking in the main parking lot. And that's where they were
Okay.
parked. So,
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
yeah, you're welcome.
It's important to hear this. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
So we're going to move to council referral number 4. And Daniel's going to speak to this, the hazardous areas development permit areas. And I think he has a presentation for us. Hi, Daniel.
Hello, thank you. I do, and I'm just on a different setup tonight, so I'm just going to try to make sure I can get this all to work. All right, does that show up okay?
Yes.
Excellent. So I have tonight for you a referral from council for a proposed hazardous areas development permit. So this came out of work from the 2011 OCP, our official community plan, which identified a steep slopes development permit area. So this is the map that was included in the 2011 OCP. And so council has made it a priority, a strategic priority to do a hazardous areas development permit. So building off the work from that 2011 OCP, but expanding the steep slopes to look at areas that are hazardous, not just defining it based on if something's steep. So in September of 2020, council approved a work plan to develop a hazardous areas development permit area bylaw. And then in March of this year, council approved funding. So they approved funding for a UBC sustainability scholar to do background research on hazardous areas on Bowen Island. And so in our work plan for the hazardous areas development permit area, we'd outline these steps, and the first 3 being to gather spatial data, establish areas of high vulnerability to hazards, and define triggers for application of development permits. So in July, then we presented this all to council and sought referrals on these initial steps to committees and to a public open house, which we'll hold later in the fall, before then coming back to council and then potentially proceeding to doing the actual the bylaw development.
May I ask a question, Daniel?
Yes, Claudia.
On the last slide, C is define the trigger for application of the DP that captures large-scale development while not impeding everyday work by locals. What does that mean exactly?
I mean, that was, I think, a key consideration of council and what came out of, I don't know if people were around when the steep slopes bylaw was proposed in 2011 and ultimately rejected by council. And so some of it is, so kind of the first step that I'll go through is identifying, okay, what areas are hazardous? And then the second step, which can be equally challenging, is saying, okay, well, what work in a hazardous area is then making the hazardous area worse so that you need a development permit and a geotech to do work in that area. So there's some things that are sort of, fairly obvious, like if you clear cut the whole area and you scrape the soil and you do everything, well, you've made it unstable. But it's like, well, if you've cut one tree, is that making it hazardous? Or if you cut, a small alder, is that making it hazardous? So what's the, sort of, if you build a little garden shed, is that doing it versus if you build in a house on a slope? And
Right. Okay. So defining the minimum, the threshold to, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. So what our scholar identified was on Bowen, he identified that there were 4 main potential hazards. So flooding from lakes and wetlands, stream erosion and flooding associated with that, landslides, so shallow landslides or debris flows or rock flows, and then the 4th one being coastal erosion and coastal flooding, especially when considering sea level rise. So he proposed, he mapped, and I'll show you the maps in a sec, but essentially mapped setbacks from those potential hazards of 7.5 or 15 meters, depending on the type of hazard that it is. And so this is essentially what the map of the island looks like. And I have 2 little insets I'll show you in a sec, but so you can see those 4 different types of hazards: the lakes, wetlands, the streams, the steep slopes if they're high or moderate hazard, and then the coastal flooding or erosion. So this is just a close-up of Snug Cove, and you see Snug Cove in particular gets hit by the coastal flooding potential. I mean, it's one of the sort of main areas actually on Bowen that this coastal flooding area comes into play in a big way. And this is just showing an area by Killarney Lake and showing potential hazards there of flooding from wetlands, flooding from streams, or from the slopes on the side. And so then our scholar did some work thinking about, okay, what would proposed development permit triggers be? So he put this general category. So for any of the hazards that these things, so building a building over a certain size, altering grade over a certain amount, over 0.5 meter, or tree removal, and trying to define, okay, 4 smaller trees or 1 larger tree would be triggering in any of the 4 hazard categories. And then he looked at lakes and wetland flooding areas. What would be a trigger? Stream erosion and flooding, what would be a trigger? Same with coastal erosion and flooding areas, or the steep slope hazards, and different for if it's a moderate hazard slope or a high hazard slope. And some work too looking at, okay, what are proposed DP development permit requirements? What would you be required to do if you were proposing development in one of those hazardous areas and it was enough to sort of trigger the need for a development permit? What in essence is required, and what it really boils down to is a geotechnical assessment, where you have like a geotech come and do a report and can identify that, okay, moving the grade and removal of this tree isn't going to cause a hazard. So essentially what we're doing with this report is referring to committees. We're planning open houses in November. We're planning in-person and virtual open houses, and sort of waiting to see what we'll end up doing. And then we would return to council with all the feedback that we've received. And at that point, look at council direction to actually develop the bylaws with the actual sort of the legal language within it of what exactly is in the bylaws. So then I'm open for any comments that you have at this point on this report, and then and we'll go from there.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. I made a couple of notes after I read it. Oh yeah, so one of the exemptions from the DPA for hazardous areas was the removal of hazard trees. And I wanted to know what the stipulations around that are, who gets to designate it as a hazard tree, and if it's a certified arborist, are there any checks in place from the municipality that it has been looked at as by a certified arborist, and so on, so that we're not getting people using that exemption to remove trees by just saying, oh, well, it was a hazard tree.
It's a good question, Claudia. It's something we've actually been doing a lot of work with lately, the last couple of months, for our existing development permit area. So for our watershed stream aquifer protection area has a similar exemption for hazard trees. And in particular, it gets tricky if it's within a riparian area, because the provincial government has requirements too. So what we are doing, and Bonny can correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're within the watershed, we require that it be a certified arborist. And then if you're within the watershed, but you're also within the 30 meters of the stream, so it's a riparian area, it's a certified arborist who's taken specified courses from the province. And so what we've done recently is we've actually gone out and we've contacted arborists who are licensed to work on Bowen to note which of them have those qualifications. Then we've actually tagged it in our business search function on our website that they have the correct certification for riparian areas. So I would imagine something similar for hazardous areas as well, that we'd be looking at certified arborists.
Okay. Also under exemptions, thank you. Also under exemptions are that all public works and services and maintenance activities carried out by or on behalf of the municipality are exempt. And I'm wondering if there's some kind of oversight built into that, because, works can happen that the people maybe conducting those works, I mean, they don't have the qualifications that a certified arborist or a qualified professional for riparian areas regulations. I mean, I'm just wondering if there's like some process before work happens on behalf of or by the municipality in these hazardous areas.
I mean, that's a good question too. Like I know currently for our watershed development permit area, we're exempt for maintenance work. But we do go through development permits for like new development work. So I think the idea being like day-to-day work of maintaining it, we don't go and get a development permit to do it. But when we're proposing new work that it is triggered and that does require a development permit. And I would imagine, if that stays the same, then that would sort of be the similar process, but I'm not totally sure.
Okay, something to think about, I guess. And I was wondering about the setbacks that were suggested by the scholars report. 7.5 meters for lakes and wetlands and 15 meters for small streams. And I was wondering how he came to those numbers. And I haven't looked specifically at his report, but are they in compliance with riparian area regulations?
Yeah, so if it was a riparian area for lakes, wetlands, streams, if it's riparian applicable, as you know, it's like anything within 30 meters requires the riparian assessment. And then it depends on the nature of it, how far then the SPIA would be that needs to be free from development. So it's possible, like I would think for the wetlands, if it's a riparian wetland.
Could you define SPIA?
Oh, sorry, it's the Streamside Protection Enhancement Area. So essentially, if you do work within 30 meters of a riparian stream, what the QEP on the project does is define the SPIA. And that essentially has to remain free of development. And there's a methodology that if it's a ditch or if it's actually fish bearing or, there's different categories and it defines how wide the SPIA can be. And essentially within that SPIA, you can't do development. Bonny can correct me if I'm wrong. But in essence, it means I think those setbacks from lakes and wetlands in some instances mean that they may never come into play because you can't do the development within it anyways in some cases, but in some cases, you could and then they would be in effect.
Okay, thank you. Bonny.
Yeah, Daniel, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think that this might protect add a little bit more of a protection around a tributary to fish bearing, let's say a little stream tributary to where a property owner, let's say, there's the 30-meter simple stream protection enhancement area, but you can pay more money to a qualified environmental professional and you can do a detailed assessment, which can bring the buffer around that stream down, depending on different ecological features and functions. So sometimes, let's say a SPIA can be reduced to, let's say, 7.5 meters. So in this case, there's a potential per se, because it was 15 meters on streams. Am I correct, Daniel? The buffer was it 15 meters?
I believe so.
So in some cases, I see that there may be a little bit added protection, perhaps, in some cases.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you. All right, so I've got a couple people on the speakers list. I'll start with Jeremy, please.
Yeah, Daniel, I have some question about is the idea to have the municipality present a roster of municipally approved people, experts, say, of geotech for a slope stability study, or is that the purview left to, say, a developer or a property owner?
It would essentially be up to the property owner to hire the professional. What like what we do now for environmental ones is we keep on our website through our business licensing, we can search and say, these are people who are licensed to work on Bowen. And then what we've done for environmental assessments is we have a terms of reference. So we have a development procedure bylaw that says we can lay out terms of reference for studies. So we've developed the terms of reference for those environmental studies and say, so we kind of have a format and we say, this is all the things we want you to cover. We want to show that you've included these things. And we would probably look at doing something similar in this case. So we'd be able to tell people like, these are people who are licensed to do it on Bowen, but I'm sure there's other on the North Shore who might be willing to do it. And you can contact other people and we would have a terms of reference, say, this is what the report should look like.
I'm just wondering if it's important to have an arm's length relationship there, so that a property owner, say, or developer isn't hiring somebody who might preferentially alter their assessment in favor of the applicant. That seems to me a bit of a point. And there's another one too. I noticed a disparity in the two maps from 2011 to the more recent one. Close to me, below Rivendell, there's a development going on that is, and in the earlier map is shown as steep slopes, and on the second one it isn't. And if you go there, I regularly walk by there, it's a steep slope. And in fact, somebody has built a rock wall there to extend the level area around their finished house, which reputedly did have a geotechnical report, but it's all dry stack rocks, very steep. And the area below, I look at it, I'm not a geotech, but I look at it and it defies my intuitions about what stability is. And I think in a 7 Richter scale event, that wall, unless it was completely somehow anchored in concrete and steel, is going to come down on the houses that are immediately below, the ones that are above Artisan Square. It looks really unstable just to your eye. Apparently it has a geotechnical report, but I would find it very difficult to believe that it was be possible to stabilize the slope the way that was built.
Why? Yeah, and I'm to Jeremy's point. Why would the map have changed from 2011 of the grade of that slope to the new map? The grade hasn't changed, and
no, and if anything, it is less stable because of imaginably less stable. Let me put it that way. Because of the work that was done with the dry stack wall. And I know for a fact that people who live below it are concerned about that. I mean, they're concerned that in an earthquake event, their houses are going to be avalanched out with these huge boulders that are used in the dry stacking.
Well, and all the trees have been removed from.
And they have, and that was supposed to be, interestingly enough, a greenway with the exemption that it could be altered for the sake of use. Well, the entire area is of use, so it's essentially largely been removed.
Okay, I could get Daniel if you'd like to respond, or we could move on to another speaker and.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say in general, like I don't know, I haven't looked, Jeremy, and I know the property you're thinking of, and I haven't looked specifically at the mapping and comparing the two in that area. I mean, I know in general our LiDAR mapping now is much more sensitive, right, than it was in 2011, and that's a large part of the difference in that. And then I think some of the work he did as well, looking at soils and rainfall and identifying which was at more risk, is sort of why the map is, less of the island is tagged as development permit areas, but I can look specifically in that area. And then regarding sort of the professionals and the professional reliance model, I mean, it's always sort of a lingering thing that for many projects now in most development sort of across the province, we've moved to this professional reliance model. And yeah, it has its sort of pluses and minuses, being the worry that, okay, is this the first, geotech report that they got for the project, or is this the third one they got and this is the one that they like? And I just know like our development procedure bylaw does have an option in it for the municipality to seek a peer review of a report and have the applicant pay for the peer review of the report. We haven't used that provision, but it is included. I did make sure when we did that bylaw, we included a provision.
Could that be solicited by concerned people? That review?
It would have to be the municipality would have to.
So those concerned people would have to petition the municipality for that review.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Sue Ellen had her hand up.
I was just going to say the same thing. As I know there's new mapping, and every time that the municipality, and Bonny can probably speak to this too, as well as Daniel, that when we receive new mapping, it's generally more accurate than the previous mapping. So perhaps that's what's happened. I know there's LiDAR mapping that we didn't have. We didn't have that kind of scale of mapping before.
But I do know too, that's one of the reasons I really want to do an in-person open house, is the desire to print, a giant poster of the island with it on and have people come and ground truth it. Because I know that the first thing everybody will do is come and look at like, where's my property and where are my neighbors, and why is this a hazard? Why isn't this a hazard? And to get that feedback. And if we're not able to do in person, then we'll be putting out detailed mapping online and hoping to get feedback that way.
Phil, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just had a question. Thanks, Daniel, for the presentation on this. Question is around the intention to adopt the report as it is, or is it to basically write a set of guidelines that would go into the development permit language that would be, I guess, rewritten or recrafted out of what's been provided in the document or the report from the student study? Because I guess just for an example, I see the coastal flooding and erosion criteria, which is something that I work in quite a lot. It talks about flood construction reference plane of 5 meters above modern sea level, selected equivalent to Squamish and Vancouver deltas. That could be a little bit subject to subject to a fair bit of interpretation and ambiguity, depending on what you interpret as equivalent to Squamish and Vancouver deltas in terms of where that is. And also FCRP specifically is the designated flood level, which is the 200-year event defined according to certain guidelines that are present in the provincial documentation. And then it's got an additional wave effect allowance on top of that. And it's defined relative to a specific datum, which is mean sea level, not modern sea level, but it's also defined relative to the Canadian geodetic datum, which is where that reference is made to here in BC. So I guess it would help if these were, it would help in application of these, that these may be more specific. And I guess the other question around things like coastal flooding and erosion, is it the intent that this would apply kind of anywhere there's risk of coastal flooding and erosion, just in areas that are designated as having that effect? Or would you generally use a 15-meter setback from FCRP? Normally with development in urban areas, that is the criteria. You have an FCRP that's defined, and then you would set back 15 meters from that before you start your construction. Right now on Bowen, I think we kind of loosely interpret that, and just the recent discussion we had around a shoreline development permit where they wanted to work within 15 meters was actually relative to the shoreline, not the FCRP. And this would mean a significant difference in the terms of the overall setback relative to what was interpreted previously or had been interpreted previously. So I just thought I'd point that out, because there are there may be some nuances in terms of interpretation that we want to try and clarify before that, before it gets put into I guess, bylaw or wherever it's going to go. It's rather a long question or clarification, but hopefully helpful.
I mean, that is very helpful, and I'd love to hear more from you about that. I mean, ultimately, I think what the product would be if it goes down, council goes down that road, would be essentially a development permit map. So we would have a map, would have it on, as part of the OCP, and it would be included on BOMAP on our website. Where essentially you would look, and if you're, and it would have mapped the coastal area that would require a development permit.
Mm-hmm.
And then there'd be a bylaw that would just say, okay, if you're identified in these areas, you need to do the, this is what you need to do. You need to produce a report of this kind. And then these are exemptions. If you're doing work that's these things, well, you don't need to do it.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Sue Ellen?
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to know from Phil, if you can give us an answer, Phil, how different is the FCRP, and if you could define that again, from the shoreline?
So FCRP, that's flood construction reference plane. So that's defined as the height of the designated flood level plus wave effect allowance on top of the designated flood level. And designated flood level is defined relative to mean sea level as the 1 in 200 year event above that level. So it incorporates things like high tide, storm surge, and all those kind of additive effects.
Thank you. And is that 1 meter that I hear about?
It's actually, what's referenced here is not too far from what most people end up with when they do regional studies of flood construction reference plane, which is 5.0 meters. So you see numbers like 4.5, 5.0. Sometimes they're estimated as high as 6, depending on location and wave effects and things like that. So it's 5 meters above geodetic datum, which is about two and something meters above high tide. The reason is there's a 1 meter sea level rise allowance included in that, as well as a storm surge allowance and a tide allowance.
Thank you. That answers my question. I think I knew about the 1 meter sea level rise, and I wasn't sure about the other meter, which I'm hearing might be storm surge or.
Yeah, wave. Approximately.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, great. Thanks. And I echo Daniel in saying that it would be great to get some more detail. So perhaps one of the staff will be contacting you, but we'll see. This is really helpful. Thank you. My other point that I was going to raise is that we're the Parks, Trails and Greenways Advisory Committee, and our purpose is to provide advice and recommendations to council and or staff on planning for parks, trails, greenways, and outdoor rec. And so and this is about hazardous areas. So how do hazardous areas, might they intersect with parks, trails, greenways, and outdoor recreation? And so that might be the recommendations that come from our committee, not specifically about specific developments that we're concerned about, but about parks, trails, green. Are we going to lose more beaches, for example? Are there?
Sorry, I might think that that's a different discussion that we could separate from this. Like,
okay, I'm just putting it out there as I'm trying to figure out what comments I might make. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we have a recommendation before us that the Parks, Trails and Greenways Advisory Committee either support or not support the proposed hazardous areas development permit areas that have been presented, and we are allowed to add comments to our support or not support. Is there any other discussion that any members would like to have before we decide on supporting or not supporting this recommendation? Okay, no, then, oh, yep, Jeremy.
I was thinking actually that there was some relevance to Sue Ellen's remarks, particularly because if this issue was referred to us, presumably it would be within the context of our purview. And if there are any things that are either currently observed or imaginable in future as being relevant to issues for parks, sensitivities, or be it around marshes, or even perhaps slope areas where there are trails and so on. Just throwing that out there as being something to consider. It's kind of hard in the context of the island as a whole to imagine where we do have trails and what potential hazards there are. I personally can't think of any offhand from existing trails, but in terms of future possibilities, there may be some.
Yes, sorry, my thought about Sue Ellen's comment, and I may be wrong, I'm sorry, but that it was, what might we lose with sea level rise and so on. So yes, go ahead, Sue Ellen.
Thank you. Yeah, what I was thinking of more was some things I saw in the past couple of weeks. For example, I was just at, I think it was Squamish Nation website, and they had hazard warnings out for creeks that were flooding. And so I wondered about trails and whether we might want to consider steepness of trails, or how close trails went to creeks, or maybe we just want to issue an alert. Careful when you're walking on that kind of thing. And then I also wanted to mention lakes and wetlands. The trail that goes across the wetland to the meadow in Crippen Park right now is flooded. And I just, that's happening now under the current conditions. And so in a future of more extreme weather events, I wonder whether we might want to, I don't know whether it fits in this bylaw, but something about bridges and washing out culverts. These are just a few things that I've seen recently. And
I think this has been an amazing piece of work that this scholar has done, and I think we should have it on our agenda either for next meeting or a future meeting to look at this map of hazardous areas and identify where we do have parks, especially trails within hazardous areas, and decide what we want to do there. Do we want to add signage, as Sue Ellen mentioned?
I didn't mean signage, sorry, but
I meant, no, okay,
I meant
sorry.
like put out an alert on email or something. Right. But I just, thank you, Claudia. That helps me. I had seen this, of course, before on council when it came to council. So I'm just sort of trying to think further. Never mind.
Okay. Bonnie.
Daniel, you said in your timeline that there's going to be some open houses and those sort of things, and some nice maps produced and ready to be marked up. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. We're planning that for November. It's my hope.
So maybe we'll make sure that the committee knows about those open houses. That would be really great to get some input there. And then Daniel, do you envision, after making some changes or taking the input that you get from the open houses, that you might be bringing back the bylaw to the committees? Do you think we would see it again?
I would anticipate, I would recommend, and I would anticipate council agreeing that, yeah, I would refer it again to the same committees, so you could see what the other committees have said, what the public said, and if we've changed it in response.
That'd be great. Phil?
Yeah, I don't want to be cheeky here, but I guess just in terms of, we were kind of I wouldn't say, well, reprimanded maybe is too strong a word, but we were kind of told that, Shoreline development permits and the kinds of things we were discussing earlier in the year were kind of outside of our mandate as a committee. And so it's kind of curious that this thing, which is really about development and development permits, gets forwarded to us. Again, I guess I see it as being relevant to the kind of thing we can comment on. But I guess it is kind of curious that it's gotten referred to us to look at. And I'm not sure, like right now we're being asked to say, do we approve of this or not approve of this report? I think generally it looks like this is a good step forward in terms of the process on Bowen, in terms of, putting some limits around the type of development that can occur and where it can occur, and trying to avoid development in hazardous areas, which I think is generally a good objective. We've learned a lot from doing it the wrong way in lots of different cases, I think, not just on Bowen Island, but generally. So, but I guess from our perspective, do we need time to look at it in more detail, or what's the request really coming from council? Is it to just say, yeah, this sounds great, let's approve it, or do we have? I know that it's still in draft form, but I just want to understand what we're trying to accomplish here in this meeting.
I mean,
I'll
I
give
guess
it over to Daniel. I guess I'll just kind of add to what Phil said. It seems like it would be better to vote on this recommendation after the open houses and any revisions. So is that something that's possible, that we could defer the vote on the recommendation?
I mean, so typically what I've done is we go to council and then we take that report essentially to each of the committees and to the open house. And then I would look to bring everybody's comments back to council with any revisions then sort of from the full picture. But, having said that, it's like, I haven't done the open houses yet. We're probably doing them in November. So there's no harm in, like, if the committee wants to see this again at the November meeting, I'm happy to come back. I think I'll have another referral anyways. I might be intruding on your time again. So I'm happy to discuss it next month as well. And it depends on the committee. So some committees have lots of comments and lots of feedback. And some committees look at it and be like, that, seems fine. We'll pass a recommendation and we'll move on. So I'm totally open to however committees want to engage with the report.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. Yes, just we should wrap up, but Sue Ellen, last comment?
Well, thank you, Chair. I'm just having heard from Phil, I'm wondering if where it says meeting with the following comments, that more specificity regarding coastal flooding and erosion would be best, or something like that, whatever the committee thinks. But that's the the main note that I made.
Well, I'd like to poll members of the committee. Would we like to defer this to the November meeting and be able to give maybe more detailed feedback, especially if Phil has much he can provide, I think. Is that, or are people ready to vote now? Hands up if you'd like to vote now. Okay, hands up if you'd like to defer to next meeting. Okay, great. Looks like we will defer, Daniel. I think in theory, everyone's really happy that this is happening, and it's just getting into the nuts and bolts a bit and seeing if our committee has any recommendations, comments on the the recommendation to adopt the DPA for hazardous areas.
That's great, thank you. And just to members of the committee, feel free to, if you have just individual comments, you can send them to me as well, and I'm happy to collect them, or to Steph.
Okay, thank you. Sue Ellen, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, Daniel, because we haven't met since July 13th. So it's kind of getting our committee robes on. or that's how I feel. Thank you.
Okay, Jeremy?
I just had a quick question about our purview issue. Is that still, I thought that was kind of settled, that wasn't much of an issue anymore. Do you have a better feel for that, Sue Ellen, from what council's take on that is?
Council referred it to you on the advice of staff. It wasn't me barging in there or anything like that. So I think whatever the committee decides, I was just trying to think ahead to some of the other stuff. And we'll talk about that down in Shoreline and whatever. I think I've just got my all kinds of interesting things that I want to think about, and they're not necessarily part of this referral.
I think if it wasn't as complete and thorough as it looks to be, we probably would have had more to comment on about, like if tree removal hadn't been included, things like that, vegetation removal in shorelines of wetlands and lakes. I think we would be adding a lot to the recommendation in the way of comments, but and I think people do need maybe this month to look at it more specifically, but I was pleased to see a lot of that was already covered. So. Okay, we should move on. So we are now at number 5 on the agenda, action items, and reviewing the action items from previous meetings. Steph, would you mind reminding us what those are?
I sure will. I'll just pull it up now. It's so slow.
I can try and access it. Maybe it's a bit faster. So last meeting, we reviewed the action items brought forward, and all were completed except for Bonny was going to share edited articles with PTGAC, and she has been doing that, so that's great. So we can tick that box, and sending photos, text, and ideas regarding Quarry Park and Headwaters Bog signage to Carla was still outstanding. Carla, did you receive anything in the meantime?
I haven't received anything, and I'm still looking for ideas. It's still on Bonnie's and my list to do. We have some ideas already, but it's just kind of been on the back burner for a little bit. So there's still a chance to comment if you'd like to. Okay.
Yes, I had meant to, so I would like to talk with you and Bonnie about the Headwaters Bog and what should be on the signage there. So I'll be in touch about that. Okay.
Good, thank you.
Okay, so number 6 on the agenda, business arising from the minutes. So we are going to hear from Councillor Fast and Bonny about shoreline protection priorities. You have the floor. Sue Ellen.
I'll start because what I have to report is that Bonny and I haven't talked. I meant to talk with Bonny before this, but we've been doing other things. And let me see if I can find my little notes, which are gone here, but I've written over them. My main things that I wanted to mention in terms of shoreline and protection priorities is now we have a house-hound biosphere around us. So it's sort of a environmental sustainability plan for house-hound, all of the marine areas, including Bowen Island, up to the high points of the mountains around us, sort of based on the watershed, Canada's 19th Biosphere Reserve. So this is a new thing. And I don't want to speak for Bonny, but it's something that I've been working on over the past number of years on a volunteer basis. But that's a new framework for us to think about shoreline protection in. And related to that, I just wanted to invite everybody who might want to come to the Howe Sound Forum on Friday. This is Howe Sound Community Forum. Elected folks from all around Howe Sound get together. This time it's going to be on Bowen on Friday, and there'll be both a Zoom link that you're invited to, and some of us will be there in person. And I wanted to mention Keats Island, where last week I had because I chair the Keats Island Local Trust Committee for the Islands Trust. They're our neighboring island out there beside Gambier, and they are exploring the idea of putting in a development permit area, like we just heard about from Daniel, for hazardous areas, hazardous protection. They're considering putting in one for shoreline protection. So they're looking at shoreline erosion, protection of coastal ecosystems, whether they should have setbacks and things like that. And so far, they've been into that project for 4 years already. And it's very challenging now. Last week, we had about 50 people in a room concerned about their private property rights. And because we were proposing a setback and a further setback from their current setback. So just that these kinds of things aren't easy, and we might want to choose our battles in terms of the framework of environmental sustainability around us. And there was one more thing I wanted to mention too. Oh yes, and then just a little bit about docks. This is another issue that's ongoing, and it's related to shoreline protection. I don't know. I just wanted to mention that Seashell has. There's some good dock guidelines out there that include some of these different aspects. It might be something that the committee might want to look at some point. But that is all outside of, and there's a little bit in our island plan as well. The mayor and I are on the list to look at changes to the docks bylaw or further protection. And I don't know when that's going to happen. I suspect probably not this year. So, but that's all outside of our new parks plan. And so I'd like to turn it over to Bonny to say that, because in the parks plan, it says to develop shoreline protection measures, and I'll just turn the floor over to Bonny. Does that work for you, Bonny?
Sure. Yeah, I don't have a lot to add, but I know the Islands Trust is working on their policy statements as well, and Shorelin's involved with that aspect. And I've seen draft copies and have commented, and there are some good policies related to shoreline protection throughout the policy statement of the Islands Trust. So that more will be revealed about that. It's in the draft stages, but there are some good protections there. And then also we're having a Green Shores, this is sort of, I kind of blend my staff updates, but we're having a Green Shores Level 1 course on November 4th here on Bowen. We've got quite a full slate, some contractors, 7 contractors signed up, which is great because they're the folks that are doing the work. And then I think DG's coming to council as a delegation early in the new year. So yeah, that's about, and also I feel that the bylaw that Daniel presented to us tonight does provide some protection as well. Yeah, potential protections.
Thank you. And I just wanted to mention, I'm pretty sure there may be a foreshore protection model bylaw or discussion paper from the Islands Trust that's in the process of being referred to us. So when I see that, perhaps I can, I'll talk to Bonny about perhaps looking at that. Thank you. I'll put that down as an action item, Steph. Sue Ellen to talk to Bonny about the Islands Trust model bylaw.
Okay, thank you. So updates, we're at 7.1. Lou, can you speak to us about the Westside Playground?
Yes, not too many updates, unfortunately, from our side. We took a bit of a summer break as well, but we are just busy trying to fundraise. We have almost 15,000 so far that we've raised from the community on our Canada Help site. And we were hoping to plan a fundraiser this fall, but it's just been a little bit difficult for several reasons. So I think we'll do something once the COVID regulations lift a little bit more, so we can have more people gather. Yeah, so we're just basically fundraising and hoping for a build in the spring if we manage to get enough money towards that. So that's really all from our side.
Great, thank you. Phil is going to update us on the Bowen Island Trail Society.
Sure. Not too much to report in terms of BITS activities since the last meeting we had. The board met last month at the end of September, and yeah, basically the focus moving forward is moving away from putting up signs to revamping kiosks and getting some mapping established around at the kiosks and on the signposts themselves. So that's kind of our major project, and then continuing with ongoing low impact maintenance. Basically, those kinds of projects, and then member activities that will continue with things like Rogaines and trash pickup and things like that through 2022. The society managed to receive some income from Hand Loggers Half Marathon and the Canadian Mountain Running Association races that raised about just over $3,000 net. That came from about 100 runners in the two events, which were on September 4th.
Great. Yeah, very successful. Thank you, Phil. And Sue Ellen, do you want to give us a brief update on the Islands Trust policy statement?
Yes, I'd be happy to. Bonnie referred to it a little bit already, that the Islands Trust policy statement is the considerations or the policies that are across the whole Islands Trust area. So everything from the international border with the US up to north of Lasqueti Island and across here into Howe Sound. So it's quite a big area, about the size of Prince Edward Island, except saltier. And so I just wanted to let you know that what I think of as the OCP for the whole Islands Trust area, and even that's not quite accurate. It's the trust policy statement is like the statement of principles for how the whole trust area will be managed to preserve and protect the unique amenities of the islands and the environment. And this hasn't been updated for 20 years or so. And it's now in the process of being updated. And Islands Trust Council has decided to extend the public engagement because so many people were so interested in it. And basically, it's a big, long document, and I won't dig it out and show you, but it's right here beside me. And it has three main themes that we're trying to add as strategic lenses that Trust Council decided on. One is climate change and how to plan for, it's basically called Islands 2050. So we're looking 30 years into the future. One is affordable housing. How do we, what can we do to keep the communities on Bowen on all the islands being diverse? And the third one is reconciliation, and how now with the new provincial regulations and all the awareness and concern about reconciliation with First Nations, how can we build that into the trust policy statement as well. So that process is Bowen staff have met with Islands Trust staff. I think you were there too, Bonny, and maybe. And then, so I think there'll be something coming to council from staff, but I wanted to just let you all know that this is in the works because it's got an environmental component, obviously, visitors, how we respond to climate change, all those kinds of things. So it's a high level document, more like a regional growth strategy than anything else, except it's a regional protect and preserve strategy because we're in the Islands Trust area. So stay tuned for that. And if the committee's interested, I can bring it to you, but otherwise it'll be staff to staff, and then staff will bring something, municipal staff will bring something to Bowen Council, I think is the way it's going to work.
Okay.
But everybody as
Sue Ellen.
citizens is welcome to participate.
Okay, thank you, Sue Ellen. And Bonny, you are going to update us on trail linkages. Do you have
Sure. I just wanted to just update. There's 3 trails on the go. Well, 2 easements, 1 trail. So we have the Schooner Lane, and maybe everybody knows, but council endorsed entering into an easement agreement with the property owner of the Schooner Lane parcel in the west side of Bowen. Just off of Windjammer, Schooner Lane, there's a large parcel of land there. So the owner has the land on the market and wanted to ensure that there was a trail connection to the Crown trails in perpetuity. So came forward to staff and asked if we could be interested in entering into an easement agreement. So council endorsed that. So currently there's a survey going on, and then we'll enter into the legal instrument, the legal agreement with the property owner. So that will be a nice linkage. I mean, it's a really wonderful linkage. Oh, Sue Ellen, thank you.
Is that it?
Yeah, through up to, and there's an informal trail through municipal land at the top of Arbutus Ridge, we call Lot 11, and that links to up to hand loggers. But there's sort of and Phil would know that area really well. Yeah. It's a wonderful,
Anyway, so
and it's
just up in this area.
Yeah, thank you, Sue Ellen. And also what's really great with that is not only can you go straight, there's a fork, you could go straight and you end up into the Crown, but you can go, I guess, what direction are we going there? We're going, let's see here. We could be we'd be going south. If you turn south, you're going to Arbutus Ridge, into the trail network there. Am I the right direction? So yeah, so it's really vital trail linkage. The other easement that we're entering into, we had the easement agreements drawn up and then it sort of fell away just through some negotiations with the property owner, but we're securing the Cates Hill linkage between Village Drive and CV Place. So there is a linkage there, but currently it's only for certain properties to use. It's actually not a public easement officially. So we are entering into a public easement agreement with that property owner. Yes, Jeremy.
Is that the one with the stairway?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So that's really great too, just to ensure that stays. That's a vital trail linkage as well. And then the third trail is the connector trail from Killarney Picnic Grounds, the old bike park up to Lower Skid Trail. And that's half built basically now. The portion through, well, it's roughed in. The portion through Metro land. So it goes through Metro and then it goes into Crown. So yeah, so that will be done, I would say, within the next month. And Carla's been working really hard. We had to put it off for bird nesting season. There were lots of birds in there. So we stopped and then we've started. So that's a great addition as well. So people don't have to go up Hikers Trail Road and walk along Mount Gardner Road and then go up Hikers. You can just go straight from the lake up to Lower Skid.
That's great. Yeah. And there's more detailed maps in the email that Carla sent out that we were CC'd on. So thank you, Carla.
Yes. Thank you.
And one sort of that fits in is the Mike's Lorg Trail Network. That bridge is fixed now. And it's it's very expensive and it's a lot of time for staff. So it is fixed now. So that trail network is functioning.
Great. And I saw Ben's hand up.
Yeah, I'm thrilled about that trail. I have to say, it's really exciting. I'm just wondering, I noted that the bike trail, the illegal bike trail, has been dismantled to the edge of Metro Vancouver land. Do you know, because it goes further up, do you know if it's going to be gone? I know it's on Crown land, so I mean, I don't know whose jurisdiction it is. It's a pretty neat trail for kids to ride on their bikes on. So anyway, if you have any info on that, I'd be curious to hear.
Carla,
Bonny?
do you have any idea about the Crown land portion of the bike trail?
Yeah, we won't be doing any dismantling up there. Basically, when Metro Vancouver gave us the permission to build the trail, which they only gave it to us really like last year, even though we thought we had it before. So when they came out, when the environmental people came out from Metro Vancouver to take a look at the trail, they realized how many bike trails were being built out there. And even quite a few got built just over this past summer. And, you know, we didn't feel really great about dismantling them, but it's just kind of the way it is. And that's standard procedure for Metro Vancouver. And they're constantly kind of in a battle with people who like to build trails, because I get it's totally great fun. But they
Nice.
So but there are really large holes and stuff, which is not great for liability. Anyways, so what we've done is we've dismantled just small portions of the trail that are adjacent to the trail that we built, and we've just kind of scuffed them up so that you can no longer make that connection. And what's happening there is that Metro Vancouver is having an eco blitz, so they're going to have volunteers come and plant in those areas and do a bit of an ecological restoration. But yeah, in terms of the Crown land, nothing will be altered there. I mean, other than the trail that we're building.
And the trail, I was on it earlier today.
Yeah,
it looks awesome. Doing a great
Thanks.
job.
That's great. It's only taken 4 years, so yeah, it's good.
Thanks, Carla. Rob?
Yeah, just related to trails, I'm wondering if, Bonny, if you have an update on the Grafton Lake trails and when the bridge might be complete. And I also thought I heard a rumor of some motorized use on a part of that trail at one point in the last couple of months.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. And I do have it for an item later on about Grafton Lake, a separate discussion, but I believe that the bridge is very close. If not, I haven't been on the trail for about 3 weeks. I walked it with the developer and the bridge was getting close to being built, but I mean, the blocks were there. It's quite a skookum crossing. So it's coming soon for sure. And I think the discussion that I would love us to start is exactly what you were talking about, you know, what sort of signage when it does become the municipality's property, which will be happening fairly soon, probably. That how do we want to look at the use of the trails? So yeah, I think, you know, it is private property right now, and I did hear the same, that there was some motorized use. So I think these are just things that we're going to have to sort out. And I really see this committee playing a vital role on how we steward that nature reserve. And just really staff will be looking to you for some guidance. There's a lot of different stewardship aspects to that piece of land that need to be figured out sooner than later. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, what's the forecasted date of when ownership will change hands to the municipality?
I don't have that date. Sorry, Claudia. Yeah, I don't even want to hazard a guess. It will be within this. I don't know if it will be within 2021, but it's pretty soon. I would say fairly soon. Yeah, it's hard to say because it's just subdivisions are very unpredictable.
Sure.
So yeah, but it's coming. It is coming. Yeah.
Okay, great. And we are speaking with you again about any staff updates you might have for us.
Yes, right. So I think I mentioned the Green Shores session on November 4th. Mike Clerk's Bridge mentioned that. The House Sound Community Forum was mentioned. There was a dive for debris or dive against debris, like dive for debris on Saturday. That was a great event. We pulled out over 1,000 pounds of stuff from the seafloor in Mannion Bay. And then the dive in folks, the artists were there as well. And this is a House Sound wide initiative where they're creating art from ocean debris. And so it will be on our island probably next fall. So that's going to be really exciting. And so they brought really great energy to the event. It was very soggy, but there was a good turnout. And I think there was maybe 10 divers donating their time. So that was great. There is, I'm bringing forward a pesticide bylaw that's been with ECAC, because I also sit on the Environment Climate Action Advisory Committee. And so we've been working as a subcommittee on a pesticide bylaw for Bowen Island, as directed by council to work with ECAC on that. So that's going to be brought forward on November 8th for council's consideration to look at the bylaw. So that's another regulatory bylaw in Bowen, but I think, it's the intent is to improve human health and ecological integrity. So I think that's about it.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Bonnie. Sue Ellen?
Just
You're
as a
muted.
part of the staff update side of things is staff continues to operate through this COVID time. Lots of people are working from home, and it's all still disrupted. And I don't think Bonnie and Carla are behind particularly, but it's a bit of a disruptive time. And so I'm just really glad to see this committee back together again after the summer and after our hiatus last year when I guess the year before when COVID really started. So bear with us. I think from the municipality point of view, we're not even meeting in person as a council until after Christmas, and we'll see what happens next. Thank you.
Bonnie?
Great, thank you, Sue Ellen. I just wanted to just mention, Sasha, I know Sasha's still here, but I just wanted to sort of mention, generally speaking, I hope you don't mind, Chair Claudia, is that normally when someone comes to speak to us at the beginning of a meeting, we hear what they said. Everybody listened to Sasha tonight. Thank you, Sasha. And then we'll ruminate over it. And generally speaking, we'll put sort of distill down what you had said, and we most likely will have that as an agenda item either at our next meeting or the meeting after. So we'll discuss some of the points that you raised. And so that's just sort of, I just wanted, just for Sasha's benefit, maybe let her know sort of the process that we don't discuss it at this meeting because our agenda is already set. So yeah. And one other thing, Carla created a map for the Conservancy. I think maybe this committee remembers we had a the Cape Roger Curtis Conservancy lands. Some of the members of the Bowen Island Conservancy came and spoke with us. And so we put up some temporary parking signs for them on Hazard Road there, Hazard Lane, and just for temporary parking, because they really want people to funnel in off a Hazard and not go through the sensitive coastal bluff areas. And we've also created some signs that are just getting proofed by the Conservancy members to protect the coastal bluff system there. These signs will be installed on the Ocean Rock trail heads or on either end, sort of just to dissuade people from going off the trail and into the coastal bluff. It's sort of basically saying it's a one-way in and one-way out and no access to the Conservancy lands from that trail. So I just wanted to update the committee about that too.
That's great. Thank you, Bonnie. So we're going to move on to new business now. We are running about 10 minutes behind our forecasted agenda times. The PTGAC 2022 work plan is the first item under new business. And I think Bonny is thankfully going to lead us again on that.
Do you want me to screen share the work plan, Bonny?
That'd be fantastic stuff. Yeah.
One I have on the agenda is a PDF from March 2021. The only Word version I have is from February 2021. I'm sure we can hack away at this to a similar end. Do you recall there being a big change in those few weeks?
No, I don't think there was big changes to stuff, yeah, per se. So basically, we're getting close to the end of the year. So I just kind of wanted to go through quickly because we are running behind the work plan and see, what we would like to carry over, because there are a number of items that we didn't get completed this year. And then just put out to the committee for suggestions for our 2022 work plan. We do have another meeting. We're just entering into our budget cycle. So I don't foresee that our work plan items will have budgetary implications. I think most of them we can, well, we'll see, but most can be sort of absorbed in operating budgets. At least that's the way it's been in the past. So if we could just maybe quickly go through the work plan, just maybe I'll get a yay or a nay. Do we want to carry over the items that we haven't completed to the 2020 plan? And then I'll bring forward a cleaned up version of the work plan draft 2022 work plan to our next meeting.
Are you seeing the screen?
No.
It says that you're sharing your screen, but it's not showing.
I don't think you guys are paying enough taxes. My computer is really slow. So up the level here. It's got a blue spinning wheel. Great. The first item is writing campaign. You can talk us through the beginning.
Yeah. So the writing campaign, I think it's been very successful. Jeremy, you're up next. We've got your great article on special places, and it will be, I'll let the committee know, but we're going to be sending that to Bronwyn this week or early next week. And so that will be our next piece. I think it's been great. I really like it. I don't know if we want to carry on, maybe do a few more articles next year or not. It's been a great series. I think we can sort of tick that one off, that we have been very diligent as a committee. And thank you everybody who's contributed their pieces thus far. So that's something, a question to the committee. Would you like to carry over and do more articles, maybe 6 next year or 4 next year or 3 next year, just to keep our committee sort of highlighted in our local newspaper?
I think it's a good idea. I don't have everyone on screen here. Let me see if I can get, okay. So I guess all in favor, raise your hand of continuing on, maybe not as many, but I know there were some ideas of having something about the term green development and things like that. So, okay, I see Sue Ellen's hand is up, Rob's up, Lou's up. So yeah, it looks like most people would like to see that continue. So that's nice. So
Wait, which
yes.
one is that? Is that the walkabouts?
That was the writing campaign. We'll carry,
so
we'll
it's not
carry
done.
over. We'll just carry over. We'll continue it. We'll continue the
on.
campaign.
It's a really good idea during COVID when people are looking for new ways to access nature and find out about their island and be outside. I think that's great.
Okay, so then the walkabouts, yes, we'll carry that over. And go ahead, Bonnie.
And the invasive species, I think that's just as needed. I think we can just have that as a standing item, continue on with that in 2022. There may be some, like, for example, yellow flag iris removal needed in Grafton Lake, or just maybe yellow flag iris party, eradication party, or, you know, there'll be invasive plants popping up for sure. And then the install boot brushes at 2 or 3 trail locations. That was something we talked about in 2020, and we just haven't gained traction yet on that. Would the committee like to carry it over again?
I'm seeing yes from Sue Ellen.
I had a question.
Okay, Sue Ellen, go ahead.
Oh, I'm just wondering, as I remember, the boot brushes were about not spreading invasive plants by hiking. And I'm wondering if that might be better done through an article, or has there been have we identified any specific trails where it would be really important to not carry in seeds of invasive plants?
Does anybody have, I mean, for me, where I'm more concerned, it's not a municipal, is carrying grass seed down into the fairy fen.
Yeah, fairy fen would definitely, I think, be at the top of the list. Other places where grass seeds can really get a hold and degrade an ecosystem are coastal bluffs. So the municipal trail at Cape Roger Curtis would be one. It's already been quite subjected to invasive species, but you know, it could always get worse. So it might be good perhaps at the lighthouse where most people access the municipal trail. If there was a boot brush there, of course, with, you know, the sign explaining and educating of why it's important not to introduce species on your footwear into sensitive ecosystems.
And Carla has your hand.
Oh,
Thanks,
sorry,
Bonnie.
I can't see everyone.
I just wanted to mention that boot brushes are in the budget for the Quarry Park improvements. So I think there was already plans to install them at the parking lot to the entrance to Quarry Park, and probably even on the other side at Headwaters as well. And then maybe at that time we could order a couple extra and determine where else we might want to put them after that, so that could maybe carry over as a, and we can talk about it later.
Okay, thank you.
That sounds great, Carla. Thank you. And Claudia, thanks for that. So I'll work it a bit, massage, and then we'll carry it over into 2022. So informal monitoring, we're talking about beaches now, informal monitoring by committee members at beaches where known erosion, and we haven't really done that. Again, it's been staff capacity is always an issue. It's just, I'm only part-time. I'm only 0.5 in parks and environment, parks planning. So, and Carla is, well, she's 0.8 till the end of the year, and we don't know beyond that. So usually she's 0.6. So we are, and plus we've been down an operator, parks operator. So we have to be, you know, I like to be able to tick things off. I don't want to just have things for the sake of having them. I really need to be realistic on what we can do as staff. So I mean, I would love if some of the committee members wanted to do this, but we just don't have the capacity right now to monitor, I guess. Seriously, monitor, like, you know, have a schedule set up and do that. So
Good to be realistic.
yeah.
Maybe if a specific, you know, one of the volunteer members wants to bring us a project idea or volunteer to do it or something like that.
Yeah, I had that on my list to kind of follow up on it, and haven't done so yet. So good to be reminded. I was gonna look into some options for you and come back with something that would be hopefully low maintenance and easy to implement.
Thank you, Phil. That's, yeah, your expertise is wonderful. So maybe we'll keep it on. I mean, it is it's important. I can reword it a bit and keep it on there then.
It can also be more of an educational thing too, to just help the community be aware of the changes that are happening or not happening, whatever you discover.
I think your article was really good, Phil, too, about that. Like, all the articles have been great, and I think that was very educational, your article. And then I think I just personally maybe keeping this on, maybe not specifically Pebble Beach, but maybe just being more general and having a beach, a formal naming ceremony at one of our beaches by the Squamish Nation. Be really nice. Can work on that. Maybe I'll see some Squamish Nation members at the House Sound Forum, and, you know, maybe just start chatting. And also I have a friend on council there, so I would love to have some ceremony in one of our parks or trails or beaches. So yeah, and identify undeveloped beaches where accesses can be improved. Again, COVID is sort of not really helped us been able to identify, but again, it might be something nice to carry over into 2022, identifying our priority areas that we could improve access. That would be great. The Quarry Park and Headwaters Park, Carl and I are really going to try and finish the work by the end of the year. I know we're running short, but it is a 2-year project and we are coming to the end of the 2 years. And so I hope we don't have to carry this over. It's hard to have a big event right now too with the community, but
oh, sorry, Bonnie. Sue Ellen had a question, I think.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if, whether the Maggie Cumming Fund is in the works for the next cycle, whether you've got the connections there, whether we should be identifying projects. I don't know. How is the Maggie Cumming Fund work going?
Well, that's this job. So that's what we're trying to finish because it was a 2-year project. So it's just, again, it's staff capacity.
No,
and
that, should we be starting to think about the next one? But because 2022 is coming soon, so
yeah,
I'll think about some ideas.
Yeah, that would be great to identify. And then again, I think some of this might spill over into early next year, and I just don't see us doing another project right away, just knowing what's coming up staff-wise. But we can start to think about another project. I think
my interest is, as a friend of Maggie Cummings, and just to try and keep that door open. And but we're certainly in COVID times and some unusual times. So thank you. That's great.
That'd be great to think of projects for sure. Great. And then review and comment on rezoning subdivisions and relevant climate emergencies policies as directed. I think that's ongoing, and I think there'll be quite a bit of quite a few referrals for this committee in 2022. I would suggest maybe, I don't know if it would fit under the Greenways, but I do want to put in develop a plan, management plan for the Nature Conservancy, or the nature, sorry, the nature park around Grafton Lake. I really think that that's something that we need to do as a committee, or I'd like to see done in 2022. I don't know, how does the committee feel about that?
I'm in favor of it. Raise your hand or keep it up if you can, if you're in favor. I saw Jeremy flash a hand. Phil's hand, Rob, Ben, Nicola. Okay, great. Yes, yes. Everyone is on board with that.
That would be so helpful for staff, and bringing forward some recommendations from the committee to council, I think will be really, really helpful. Yeah. Swimming, no swimming, dogs, no dogs, fishing. You know, there's so many issues.
Bonny, there's also the report. There's 2 reports that I was involved in regarding that, the area around the lake. One was done for the Bowen Island Conservancy and one was done for the developer. And there's quite a few recommendations in there of what should and shouldn't happen. So we can look at that and build on what's there, or decide what we want from that.
That's perfect, Claudia. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you have a lot of knowledge about the lake and the species that exist there. And yeah, so that's really great. And then signage at beach access parks and trails. I think that's, you know, we definitely, there's still some old signs out there. So we just keep them coming, Carla, my way, if you notice those brown signs. Love to hear about them. And I don't know, do we still want to carry over the determine feasibility of installing boxes for bats and swallows on the poles and trees at Veterans Park? The poles are still there.
I mean, I think it's a good idea. There's some bat surveying going on out at the Conservancy lands, recently acquired by the Bowen Island Conservancy out at the Cape, you know, and they're finding bats, and yeah, so I think it would be good to keep it on there, and you know, as we can address it. Sue Ellen?
Well, I wonder if we might want to invite the Bowen Nature Club to see whether they would like to put up some tree swallow boxes and bat boxes and that kind of thing. It might, because they're families and they might be interested in a project like that. And if people would like, I can approach them. Would that be something the group is interested in?
I would be interested in having them sort of take that over, take it on. You have to speak up if you have any objections or additional comments, because again, with the screen sharing, I can't see everyone.
By the way, if depending on your screen, you might be able to just find the slider between the faces and the screen share and pull it over one way or.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Sue Ellen. Yeah. Yes.
Just depending on your screen. Yeah.
Then I can't read the the document, but anyway. Okay, so Bonny, did that bring us to the end? I'm just going to plug in my computer. It's about to die.
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll rework the plan and I'll bring it to the committee, bring it back next meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right, and Sue Ellen?
Can I just add one thing? I just wanted to mention that Metro Vancouver is also creating 2050 plans. And one that I was part of on the weekend was a cycle. It's a transportation plan, and they had a major cycling network and park/greenways cycling, recreational cycling. Anyway, they're both coming to Bowen, and in the draft transportation 2050 plan, it shows what is going to be our multi-use pathway going across the island from the ferry up the hill past Bix and on to Grafton Lakes and beyond. So in thinking about the parks plan, I think it might be too early because that's still a draft plan. It's not approved and all that, but maybe just have in mind the idea of electric bicycles, way more bicycles, because now hills won't be an issue, and getting people to these different trailheads all over the island. It just seems to me to be a bit of a game changer, and that we might want to consider it sometime, either on the agenda or in the work plan. Identify. I think the other committee, was it ECAC? Anyway, the Environment and Climate Action Committee had also thought about electric bikes and maybe charging stations, and as a way to handle more visitors to Bowen, but also get around without cars. And so just something to keep in mind. Maybe, I don't think it's part of this work plan yet because it's not approved, but also anybody on this committee is welcome to go. I'll put the link in the chat. Thank you. You can have your say.
Okay, I believe that takes us to 8.2, but maybe we've covered Grafton Lake as much as we need to tonight. Is that right? Okay, great, Bonnie. Thank you. 8.3, we have other business listed. Is there any other business? Okay, good. So now we need to determine the date of our next meeting. Steph,
So I forgot if you guys wanted the second Tuesday, third Tuesday. I think Bonnie had some.
this is the third Tuesday. I will not be here on the third Tuesday of November, and I can't really do the second Tuesday either. Though I could maybe do the November 9th or 23rd. Does anyone else have any conflicts or preferences? No? Okay.
Can I just, Claudia, it
Yeah.
might have something to do with when Daniel could be available too for the next hazardous slopes.
Shall we pencil in November 23rd? And Steph, would you mind checking with Daniel if he's available then?
Okay.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for spending your Tuesday evening here. And I think it was a great meeting, and look forward to seeing you again in November. And take care. And we're going to I'll have someone move to adjourn. Someone? Nicola, second. Rob,
Seconded.
all in favor? Okay, good night, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Thanks,
Night.
everybody.
Night, night, baby girl.